The Atlas of a Life. The city skyline was Elara's manuscript, and the Crestwood Tower was to be her signature. From her drafting table, high in a glass-walled Manhattan office, she etched the final details onto the blueprint. It was nearly midnight. This project, a sleek, sustainable skyscraper, was more than just steel and glass. It was her bid for partnership, the culmination of a 15-year climb. At home, the apartment was quiet. Her husband, Leo, was on the couch, half watching a movie. "Hey, you," he murmured, pulling her into a hug. "You're gonna work yourself into the ground." She smiled, but her mind was still on transom specifications. She kissed him, her gaze drifting to the blinking light of a new work email on her phone. The call came at 3 a.m. a strange number with an Ohio area code. A clipped, professional voice informed her that her mother, Marion, had been found wandering 2 miles from her home. She'd had a fall. As Elara listened, the solid, well-designed structures of her life began to feel terrifyingly fragile. On the flight to Columbus, Elara's laptop was open, but the words on the screen were a blur. She was toggling between a call with a frantic junior architect and a text chain with a hospital social worker. The pressure in her chest felt like a physical weight, a cornerstone for a building she didn't know how to design. Marion was small in the oversized hospital bed, a bird with a broken wing. "Clara, is that you?" she asked, her eyes clouded with confusion. The doctor was kind but direct. Early onset Alzheimer's. The diagnosis landed in the sterile room with a deafening silence. Elara held her mother's hand, the familiar lines and veins now a map to a vanishing country. Back in New York a week later, Elara tried to present the Crestwood Quarterly Update. Her mind kept drifting to medication schedules and her mother's frightened voice on the phone. When a client asked a complex zoning question, she hesitated. Gavin, her ambitious junior colleague, jumped in. "If I may," he said, smoothly delivering the answer she had prepped him on weeks ago. Her life became a series of split screens. On one, the elegant lines of the Crestwood Tower. On the other, a grainy video feed from the camera in her mother's Ohio home. She spent her lunch hours on the phone with home health agencies and her evenings researching geriatric care, all while trying to keep her own multi-million-dollar project from derailing. "Did you call the plumber?" she asked Leo one night, the exhaustion making her voice sharp. "Oh, sorry, I forgot. You just had to remind me," he said, not looking up from his tablet. "That's the entire point, Leo," she snapped, the frustration of 1,000 unspoken tasks boiling over. "I have to remember everything for everyone. It's a full-time job nobody sees." The call she had been dreading came from one of Marion's neighbors. Her mother had left the stove on, again. The home care aide wasn't enough. With a heavy heart and no other options, Elara made the decision. Marion was moving to New York. The city was a terrifying beast to Marion. The sirens, the crowds, the sheer scale of it all sent her retreating into a frightened silence. As Elara unpacked her mother's familiar floral bedsheets in their small guest room, she was gripped by a suffocating guilt. She had brought a fragile woodland creature into a steel jungle. There were moments of grace. Elara found Marion sitting on the floor one afternoon, surrounded by old photo albums. "That was our house on Willow Creek," Marion said, her voice perfectly clear, pointing to a faded picture. For a few precious minutes, the fog lifted, and Elara had her mother back. At the firm, the shift was undeniable. Gavin was now leading the client meetings for Crestwood. In a team presentation, he unveiled a groundbreaking new design for the lobby atrium. It was a concept Elara had sketched in a notebook months ago, an idea she had shared with him over coffee. She saw her ghost in his machine. Elara tried to work from home, but concentration was impossible. As she fine-tuned a complex HVAC schematic, Marion began to weep in the next room, convinced she was late for a high school dance. Leo came home to find Elara staring blankly at her screen, paralyzed by the competing demands of her two worlds. While searching for her mother's insurance card, Elara stumbled upon a portfolio of old drawings. They were architectural sketches, dated from before Elara was born. They were her mother's. They were beautiful, innovative, and full of a talent Elara never knew she possessed. Marion had dreamed her daughter's dream first. She was on a critical video call with the Crestwood developers when Marion's agitation escalated into a full-blown sundowning episode. Her screams echoed through the apartment. "I have to go," Elara said, her face burning with humiliation as she abruptly ended the call. On the screen, just before it went dark, she saw Gavin's faint, triumphant smirk. Her boss called an hour later. "Elara, we're concerned," he said, his voice dripping with corporate sympathy. "Maybe it's best if Gavin takes the lead on the client-facing aspects of Crestwood for now. Just until things settle down for you." It was a velvet-gloved demotion. The partnership was gone. That night, she didn't try to work. She just sat in the dark as the city hummed outside. When Leo came home, he found her motionless on the sofa. "I'm losing everything," she whispered. And then she told him all of it. The stolen ideas, the demotion, the crushing weight of being the sole atlas for her family's world. He didn't offer platitudes. Instead, he pulled the kitchen calendar off the wall and sat next to her. "Okay," he said. "Let's map it out. All of it." For the next 2 hours, they wrote down every single task, from Marion's doctor appointments to ordering groceries. He drew a line down the middle. It wasn't a solution, but it was a shared map. Fueled by her mother's old sketches, Elara started to draw again. Not for the firm, but for herself. She designed a new kind of building, an assisted living facility with light-filled studios, sensory gardens, and art therapy rooms. It was a design born of empathy, a structure built to hold memories with dignity. While organizing her old project files for the handover to Gavin, she found it, a time-stamped email from 10 months prior sent to Gavin with her initial atrium sketches attached. The proof, a cold, clear anger settled in her chest. She had a choice: fight for a seat at a table that was never truly hers, or build her own. She walked into her boss's office the next day and resigned. She didn't show him the email. She didn't mention Gavin. "This firm's structure is not sustainable for people with lives outside these walls," she said calmly. "I'm going to build something that is." She left her keycard on his desk and walked out. Together, Elara and Leo found a wonderful adult daycare center for Marion. It had an art program, and for a few hours each day, Marion would paint, her hands remembering a language her mind had forgotten. The change was remarkable. She was calmer, happier. With a small business loan and all of her savings, Elara leased a tiny studio in Brooklyn. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. Leo spent the weekend helping her paint the walls and assemble furniture. He hung her new business license on the wall. Voss Design. Elara Voss, Principal Architect. Her first pitch was to a private equity group run by a woman known for investing in healthcare. Elara didn't present blueprints. She told a story. A story about her mother, about dignity, and about how buildings can care for people. She unveiled the design for the Marion House. The investor was silent for a long moment. "When can we break ground?" she asked. Months later, Elara stood on the muddy construction site, a hard hat on her head. The foundation for the Marion House had been poured. Leo squeezed her hand. Her mother was with them, having a lucid day, her eyes tracking the cranes against the sky. Elara looked at the solid, emerging structure, a building made not of compromises, but of love. It was her signature on a manuscript of her own making.